What are your adjustments?
I don't know. It's all new equipment.
We'll change your adjustments.
No, I don't
perhaps
change
mine
my
to yours.
adjustments to be hearing all that.
Do mine to yours, kind of.
We'll just keep tinkering with it. Who knows? It'll work in the long run. Let me know when we're live on all these platforms.
Yeah, we are.
We're there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you have your phone with you?
Mhm.
Check and make sure sound's coming through, because that's kind of an important part to all this. Have you noticed? Awesome. All right, cool. Okay, you can stop that because that's weird.
I want to make sure that I have sound.
All right. Cool. Oh my goodness. You can stop that because that's weird.
Okay.
Good grief, that's kind of creepy. Well, all right. We are testing some new equipment, which is why we're being Dorcases right now, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Welcome to One with Coach Blu. It's good to have you all here.
Welcome.
It's good. It's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
With this new equipment, I can do stuff like this. Look at that.
This is what he's most excited about.
I don't know how often I'll use that. Maybe when something really funny or weird happens that one of us doesn't laugh, I'll hit that.
Okay.
You know, there's also
But
this. There's also this one.
Yeah.
That's good. I could use that. I could use this one to death.
And more.
And probably more.
Many.
Let's be
more.
honest. Welcome to One Live with Coach Blu. This is your opportunity to jump on, talk about addiction, mental health, communication, all kinds of stuff. And I think that you can use this time to submit questions either through our Facebook chats or submit them just here on Zoom. Because we've been adjusting some of our equipment, I don't know if we have the capability yet to bring on phone calls because you, the listener, won't hear them that runs through the computer. So we're going to get there next week. But nonetheless, welcome. It's good to have you all here. Marissa, any news that we should let these folks know? Project ELF stuff or?
Our applications are closed for Project ELF 2021.
Yeah.
But we are still accepting donations. If you're interested in helping, sponsoring a family, donating wrapping supplies, or just donating money, please, you can go to addictathlete.org. You can go to our donate page. There's places and ways to donate. The best one is probably Facebook. There's a donate button. You can donate there. 100% of the donations come straight to us. There are not fees taken out like many other donation platforms. You can also go to Venmo at Addict-Athlete-Robinson and donate there. And in the notes, you can put Project ELF so we know where you want those funds to go. And we will make sure that that happens. There are a lot of kids out there that need help this year, and we are doing our best to get as many as possible and try to make a Merry Christmas for them.
Cool. Yeah. And in fact, we're going to be doing some stuff with Giving Tuesday coming up November 30th.
November 30th is a big fundraising day for nonprofits. Facebook matches donations for the first little bit, but it's, site-wide, but anything helps. And it's a great day to, we have our Cyber Monday. That's where you go on and do all your online shopping, Black Friday, and then Giving Tuesday.
Yep.
That is huge for us, and we welcome any donations that day as well.
It is. It's a big deal. And because Marissa and I kind of run the organization, this is not our big boy, big girl job. We hope one day that it becomes that. So right now, just for public awareness, we do not take any money for ourselves for the operation costs that we have to provide for doing things like this and the time that we invest, because right now, as we still feel, even 10 years into this, Addict to Athlete still in its infancy, we don't draw any kind of money from that personally. So all proceeds go into the community programming. And it was kind of funny last night as we were doing some stewardship stuff with the board, with me, you, and Coach Jensen. We were talking about finances and whatnot. And it is amazing to see the charitable donations that you guys provide. And as just as a reminder, the significance of what it means when we start really getting into the Christmas holiday, because so much of what the home base does reflects and revolves around this charitable donations. We help provide Christmas. And other chapters that have been established too, we thought, man, we carry the bulk of that. Yeah. And I didn't realize that.
Yeah, we have different accounts for our different chapters, but
the cool thing,
Salt Lake County chapter.
Yeah, the cool thing about it is that throughout the process, everyone, this is 100% because of the donations and the grace of others. So thank you so much. There's still a lot of work to be done. And as we close down the Project ELF, 2 weeks ago now, almost?
Yeah.
We still have more people that need help. And it's really difficult and challenging to turn people away. And it's hard. And so we've had a few of these bursts of extra income that's been donated. And so thank you, because it will be used. So I appreciate that.
People come and said that they're willing to help. We do have kind of a wait list even for a couple families that we just don't, in our Project ELF budget, can't help. So if you're interested and you're willing to sponsor a family, then I would be willing to contact them and say that we can help. So
Important stuff. So
yeah,
thank
it's
you
really
all.
important. It's a difficult job.
Yeah.
It's a difficult
The one
job.
thing about Giving Tuesday that's always kind of hard is that we've told that, you want to, to share with the community at large what you're doing. And it's one of these things where it would be fun to jump up on the mountaintop and just, to toot our own horn to all of the service stuff we do, because it's immense. But there's also this humility inside there that's like, we don't really want the credit for it, and so it's kind of it's kind of a catch-22, because you guys need to know what we're doing. The other side of that coin is I don't want to feel like it's boasting either. Does that make sense? Because these people, this team does a lot for its community. From this podcast all the way up to, the Project ELF, there is so much that this team does in so many different ways. So we will definitely be in the mindset of helping share that message. But thank you all so far for sharing, a little bit of the Christmas and holiday cheer by donating to the team. So thank you.
Yeah, there's many ways to donate. Even going to our team store is a great way that you get something in return, as well as, the profits of that come to our nonprofit, becoming a patron.
Yep, Patreon.
And
Yep.
so please do that. You get a lot of bonus episodes and things from becoming a patron that you wouldn't get otherwise.
Yeah. So right now, if you jump on patreon.com/addict athlete, you can jump on and see the many tiers that we've kind of established to help give you something back for something in return, meaning we are providing multi episode weekly our extracurricular recovery playbook. This is a playbook you can use to help solidify, strengthen, or establish your recovery, overcoming addiction, mental health, trauma, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
how come every time we start this, the dog comes in and starts acting a fool?
I thought we had that door shut, but
It's
we
funny.
have our 2 dogs. So if you hear weird noises in the background,
It's just the dogs.
if they get too loud,
Did you hear last week when the pug kicked in the door like a SWAT team?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. I'm like, how does that little body kick in the door?
it can smack it.
Yeah.
in the desks and-
Anyway, listeners, there's so much to do today. We're going to jump right into it. Marissa, we've got questions that have been submitted. And again, if you want to participate and you have a question about the things we're discussing, jump on, get the dialogue going. Marissa monitors the Facebook page and the other social media outlets. So jump on, don't be shy. But one of the first ones we wanted to talk about was a question that came up just in discussion about Team Addict athletes' participation in community recreation and sports, and why we've chosen, and it's not that we don't do it, but why a majority of our team plays in mainstream sports and not so much some of these outlets or kind of like organizational type experiences. What I mean by that is, in Utah, there is a large addiction recovery population, which is awesome,
it's a
and
really great community.
they have over the years established themselves in situations within the community by which they can produce and have what do you call it, like sober softball leagues, sober
Sober
gyms,
volleyball.
sober these things, and it provides an outlet. Is that your dinger?
Yeah,
Turn that
it's
off.
I don't even know if it's really
It provides an outlet for people in recovery to go and to experience recreation and whatnot with people that they know and those things. Now, when Team Addict Athlete was established, the reasons why we don't really go there first is because I'm personally in the belief system that we shouldn't segregate ourselves any longer. And I'm not saying that the sober softball leagues are bad. I think they're great. And we have a lot of athletes that play on both. So I love it. But this outlet I wanted to provide so that they could get back into the mainstream, so they didn't feel as though their addiction or their pursuit of sobriety made them something different. I wanted them to be able to play and recreate with, dare we say, the muggles, right? The normal people. And what we found was that when we went out and we experienced and participated in the mainstream city leagues, it opened up a huge dialogue. We've had teams approach us after the game saying, hey, what is this name, Addict to Athlete, where our athletes, get to share with them their recovery process. We have had hundreds and hundreds of interactions with people in the community because of that. So instead of kind of just being typecast to one paradigm, I wanted the athletes to be able to say, you're no different than anyone else. When we first started this, we had a basketball team. We were playing City League. And we did get treated very different because of our name. And it was interesting because there's a couple of times I almost lost my mind as their coach, trying to get these referees to play fair with us.
Yeah.
There was one time where the ref allowed some really heavy, hardcore play and didn't eject,
Pretended they didn't see it.
pretend he didn't see it. And I had to file a complaint with the city, and that was dealt with. And it came to find out just, through the roundabout way that referee specifically had a relative in addiction whom he didn't appreciate. And so when he saw what we were doing and whatnot, he just kind of projected some of those feelings onto the team, and it ended up
prejudice and stigma.
And that was early on in the team's inception. It was like 2011. And we've had softball situations where we've had some aggression and stuff from people who didn't know what it was. We've had an umpire.
We've had other just simple things where it's just kind of, I guess, naivety about addiction and things. And it's been a great opportunity for our athletes to be able to educate the public, because that is one of our real core philosophy and goals, is to be able to educate the public on what addiction is and what recovery is and what it looks like, and being able to do that, erase and replace. And so we can't do that if we're not interacting with the general public and the population.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's things like we had an umpire once that was being very inappropriate with one of our players. And we were able to have the dialogue with the city again on that situation. And it became this concept and understanding that just because there was something different, they shouldn't be treated different. And the respect level. In fact, we had one athlete that had to go up and explain to the announcer that, when you call the addicts to field 5, that's kind of abrasive to us. Please use our full name.
It is Addict to Athlete.
And in fact, it's Addict to Athlete, not addicts to athletes.
Because we focus on the individual.
Yeah. And it's funny. It's one of those tongue-in-cheek things, but we get called addicts to athletes all the time. And it just literally, it drives it, because that's not our name. Yeah. It's not about that, but it's kind of a funny thing. It's just the way that people, I guess, perceive it. Nonetheless, it was never meant to segregate the team from their roots either. And in fact, like I said, we have a lot of athletes that play on both corners of that. And it's great. I think it's fantastic. It's not that we wouldn't allow them to, it's just we're going to go there first. And because of what it's produced, it was us getting back into the community. It's important, again, because then people get to see in real time that people that struggle with addiction, that are quote unquote addicts, that's not who they're always going to be. That once an addict, always an addict is simply not true.
I think it's a multi-folded situation. So some of it is because we want them to be a billboard of recovery, a billboard of sobriety, and showing and teaching people what recovery looks like, teaching them about addiction. But I think it's also to teach our athletes that they are just like everyone else, that we don't need to segregate ourselves separately, and because we're addicts in recovery, that we need to be separate from the general population of the people.
Yeah.
I understand people like to meet with others with similar mindsets and somebody that knows and maybe understands them, but I often believe that when people separate themselves, it becomes an us against them rather than a we.
Well, let's dive into that for a minute, because I love where that angle takes us. And that's the concept that just because you struggle with a certain, issue, problem, doesn't mean that someone that hasn't experienced it can't help you. And this happens a lot in the treatment world, by which someone says, oh, I can't talk to that therapist. They've never had a drug and alcohol history. And my philosophy is very different. You know what my philosophy is, right? My philosophy is that those people should be able to help you 10 times more than the person that struggled, because that person who's never used drugs or alcohol went through and experienced the exact same emotions attached to very similar traumas. And guess what?
Difficulty and stress and
Yeah. And guess what?
they didn't use.
They didn't use. They channeled it to other areas.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that because that person didn't get drunk after a traumatic breakup with a boyfriend, girlfriend, or divorce, that they can't help you? Are you joking? They are the ones that we should really be leaning into. It says you experienced the same things. How did you not choose to suppress your emotion this way?
What else did you do differently? And how can I maybe,
Yeah,
mirror
absolutely.
that and try doing something similar?
You've had that situation because people have at first kind of been like, oh, what are you going to offer? And
You've never used.
you do more of, I guess, the counseling and that therapeutic approach than I do.
Yeah.
And it's kind of an interesting concept. So when we typecast ourselves into one paradigm, when we only see life through one lens, we miss the whole experience, you guys.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, again, I'm going to reinforce this. I'm not saying that Team Addict to Athlete wouldn't participate in the sober softball leagues or the sober gyms and those kind of things. It's just that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's another outlet and a source to be able to boost recovery through health, wellness, and recreation.
I believe that when we open ourselves to other people like that, we help break that stigma. That's what, so many people say, the stigma needs to be gone. People need to understand more. Well, if we only interact with those in recovery, how do we break the stigma? Because the stigma is usually with the general population.
Absolutely.
We were talking a little bit about this topic this morning, and if you look at it in everything else, like this world is so divided right now between Republicans, Democrats, anti-maskers, vaxxers, anti-vaxxers, and we need to be on the same team as much as possible. We don't need another thing that separates us or tells us that we're different, or we need to, not interact with somebody has a different point of view or a different history, or, we are all of the human race. And the best thing we can do is find similarities with anyone and everyone at all times will help us, I think, in more situations than just quote addiction recovery.
I think I love that you said that, because again, what it does, it puts the person participating in a situation that's not familiar into a very unique position to be able to speak upon their recovery in real time. It is how Team Addict to Athlete started when the 5 athletes took off for that first 5K over 10 years ago. They bumped into a very non-using individual, the mayor of Provo.
Yeah,
and he was so inspired by what they were doing, he contacted the county commissioners and said, green light, I want this to keep going, whatever it is.
Because they were willing to talk about their recovery with him as he asked them questions instead of keeping it hush hush. And I know, years ago, anonymity, it was important because it was so different, the culture and the world around us. But nowadays, I think we've got to talk more about it. That's how we teach. That's how we educate. That's how we bring understanding and compassion, is by learning each other's stories.
Yeah.
I think it was, you had the podcast with Heath McDougall on Monday.
Powerful podcast.
Powerful. What was it? The Power of Belief.
The Power of Belief.
Came in Monday, and you were talking about he is from the LGBTQ plus community and in recovery. And you asked, what can we do as a person, an individual that, don't struggle with that, to help others. And I think it really came down with learn each other's stories. When you know someone else's story and you know their history, or you can't but not love them or understand and have compassion and
empathy.
And then all of a sudden you start talking to them and you find these points that are like similar, like, oh, I've been through something like that. I've been through, I felt, excluded or left out, maybe in a different way, but you feel those same emotions, or that they know somebody who's struggled with that as well. And they have a lot of love in their heart for, somebody who's been through some of those issues. And that's how we do it.
That's how it's
not by
done.
keeping ourselves separate.
No, and in fact, it's funny. There's been many times where I've bumped into people that, when we talk about addiction recovery, don't realize that, of my history, my story, and they are still in that mindset that, like, oh my goodness, if I talked about this, I would be typecast. And I'm thinking, what world is that it almost seems like Neanderthal type thinking,
And
because
it breaks my heart because I'm sure there are still
it's
situations where
happened.
people
It's
wanna keep that
yeah.
to their heart because they don't want to be judged or treated horribly, or it could impede maybe a job promotion or whatever it is. That breaks my heart.
Yeah, it happens. We've taken things that we've posted off of Facebook after people have commented, "Ooh, I wanted to do this, but I'm catching some flack," and I'm thinking, "Holy crap, our work's not done yet."
No.
Because I remember one time you and I were at Brigham Young University, to school here in Provo, Utah. It's a
Private
university,
religious school.
and very religiously kind of oriented, and we were discussing Team Addict to Athlete and whatnot. And when the announcer, the host, realized that not only was I a presiding bishop at the time, but I also had a drug history, he kind of like almost covered his mic and was like, does your congregation know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, they know.
Are sharing this?
I'm like, they better know. And they better know, because I have a big sticker on my back of my car that says Addict to Athlete. I talk about this all the time. I have members of my ward that come and participate with us. And I'm like, yeah, they know. And it was interesting because I remembered really kind of like, I don't know, profoundly that feeling of like, it feels so good not to be judged that way. But there are still those that need the anonymity, which is why it's so important.
But like
That being said,
I love the fact that you were saying, no, I don't, because mostly to me in this religious community and many other, there's religious communities everywhere. We don't all go to church because we're perfect.
that's kind of the point.
Church is a hospital for sinners, not a sanctuary for saints. We are here because we are imperfect people. And if anyone thinks that any different, then you probably need to.
And if there's any judgment flowing through those veins of yours, you probably need to take a knee.
We're here because all of us have problems and all of us make mistakes and all of us have things to work on. So, we shouldn't be judging one sin over another.
So this happens a lot in family therapy. I've noticed there's been quite a few families I've worked with in my career that a child or someone struggling with addiction, and they don't know how to handle it, and so it becomes this point of contention. It becomes this frustration, because what if the neighbors know and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, you're missing the point of why this is happening. You need to embrace, you need to find out, you need to learn, you need to educate, you need to invest, and
it is scary.
It's hard.
A teenager falls into some of those situations. In fact, I'm really excited because one of our favorite past guests is going to be on the podcast this week. So it'll be this coming Monday.
Yeah.
And
Coach Parham.
Yeah, Coach Parham from Huntington Beach. Oh yeah, my Huntington Beach shirt.
There you go. Representing.
And I want you guys to cover this topic about teen and addiction, because it makes people, you see what's happened to many people throughout the years and just over time, and it's scary that, if a teen starts playing with something like that, most parents panic and they freak out. And how can you address that teen addiction? And so I'm excited to hear your guys' conversation this week.
Yeah, it's going to be powerful, because the thing is if we kind of think that, nothing non-perfect should happen behind our closed doors, our front door at home, we are setting ourselves up for major failure.
Yeah.
And the thing is you don't pull away, you draw closer to. You invite other people to help and assist, and that's the hard part too. Is about
being scared, and you don't want to share or talk about it because it looks like you're a failure as a parent. That is not.
But here's the deal, Marissa. Remember, in the world according to Coach Blu here, and I know that pissed some people off back in the day, but it's my things that I've noticed doing this for as long as I've done it. You do. I've noticed that 9 times out of 10, the reason why people use is to cover some kind of pain. Something hurts, something emotional, spiritual, physical, mental, something hurts. Yeah. If we go in and we find the source of the pain, the core issue of it, we identify it, we eliminate it, and then we allow the next one to flood in, and we start doing this over and over to the point where we become so strong at being able to problem solve and resolve conflict. Guess what happens? Recovery, sobriety.
But this is what I hear a lot of the times when I've brought things like this up with friends who have kids who struggle with addiction. And I said, well, it sounds like, there's
where's the pain?
There's some weed, there's some alcohol. Okay, there's probably some depression. Well, he's not depressed. There's not depression.
That's because that's what they want to
Hey,
see.
parent, don't judge that. How are you? Obviously, there's something,
Mhm.
and or they're the next excuse is, well, they just had some bad friends. We just need them to get good friends.
Yeah.
That's
No.
a door.
Yeah.
It's not them staying in the room at the party.
Yeah.
Maybe the door is open, but that is not,
No.
issue.
But here's the thing is parents get a bad rap for this too, because there is stewardship in the addiction, but there is not like cause. Mhm. And I think that's the biggest thing is that I've noticed that the parents are also afraid to come into treatment and to work with their son, their daughter, their loved one, because they're afraid that the gaze is going to be cast upon them. And any therapist that does that, you need to walk right out of their office, because although they can say, what part of this do you have stewardship with?
Yeah.
It was still the person's choice to keep going, and instead of being able to process it through. But that being said, once it's exposed, then we get to kind of come in with the crisis team, right? With the emergency medical technicians, and we get to start repairing that relationship. And it can happen.
And being open to whatever it is.
I know that you and I aren't great parents, Marissa. We do our best, but we still screw up.
Yeah.
We
I was
still
listening to
do.
a podcast today about a woman that was talking about the spiritual abuse she suffered as from her parents growing up. And I thought, gosh, I probably said something similar. And again, it's the perspective of the child and how they take it. It may not be.
Well, I didn't mean
negative.
to do that. I didn't mean it that way. And it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter if you didn't mean it that way. If they took it that way, then be open to it and listen and be willing to maybe make some changes and apologize and say, yeah, I should have explained that better.
We had a conversation with our 18-year-old child. Sounds kind of funny. Just last night about some of this stuff. And it came across very intense until we realized some things that she was, kind of like wrestling with. And I'm like, wait a minute. So if we would have known that beforehand, this would have had a very different approach. And I kind of thought about that after. I'm like, why wasn't it that approach anyway? Because that approach before didn't work until we had to lay down the law.
So we came off with the really strong hand at first. And because we didn't
control talk to reactive listening down to search, talk, and resolution, right? Yeah. And so you guys, when we're going through these things, you got to remember that this is all a process of learning. And this is the fun thing. There's absolutely no blame to be placed anywhere. These are circumstantial things that happen, and they're not based off of you're right, I'm wrong, I'm big, you're little, right, Matilda? They're not based off of that.
Themselves and not be wrong, and they end up making a bigger problem, trying to protect their story.
Marissa, this is why the thing has been funny. Multiple times this last couple of weeks, I've been doing this with folks I've been working with, and I use the Queen Mary mother of them all when I say, do you practice relationships before rules in your home? And the floor drops out from under them. Relationships before rules. What the flip is that, right? Because that makes it sound like there are no rules.
Yeah.
But no, relationships come just a little before the rule.
And again, it's hard. It takes time.
It takes practice.
It's been difficult for me to learn, and it's hard to practice because, you don't want to act like there's no issues because you have that relationship and you want to be your friend with your child, but no,
so it's like this, and we've practiced this for years. And so this isn't going to be something that you're going to be able to just jump in and have instant success with. It's going to take a lot of trial and error, a lot of success and failure. But last night, for instance, right, the relationships before rules came when we were setting this whole thing up, and it was, we need to talk to you. You're overworking.
Bad behaviors we're seeing that we're worried about. There's a problem.
And let's be honest, between you and me and whoever's listening to this, I don't know if anybody listens to this. Between me and you, they're not huge things. She's pulling her grades. She needs to increase a little bit, but she's got a job. She's doing great. She's 18. She's a young adult.
She's trying to push her independence,
but
which comes with the age.
You and I noticed that it was coming at her own emotional and physical health expense.
Yeah, that there's things slipping. There's things with her her physical health, like you say, with her sleep patterns, which when her sleep's off, things get really off.
So that comes from her mom.
Yeah, but you know, we watch and we see the signs, you know, like there's simple ways of just seeing how she's eating, her spirituality, the way she keeps her room, and you know, like jobs or just other responsibilities that she's letting slip. And
so we noticed that there were some things that she was beginning to establish patterns where she was just not involving herself. And it's because she's physically tired. So the relationship came when we're like, hey, we're noticing this stuff. You doing okay? What's going on? And she talked to us. I'm like, okay, well, back off. And then she'd do more of it. We're like, hey, still noticing this stuff. I need you to really start picking it up.
Yeah.
You know, other things were like she was overwhelmed. So on my birthday, I helped her wash her car, right? Relationships before rules are that it's your car. You got to wash it yourself. But relationship is I'm going to do this with you as an opportunity to kind of talk. But then it came to the point where, all right, don't take our kindness as weakness either.
Yeah, because like 3-4 days in a row, hey, this is your curfew or this is your time, and she pushes it.
Absolutely. And so last night we had to have the talk.
Mm-hmm.
And it was good because the relationship we had established allowed her to be comfortable when she was speaking with us. Because it's like, I don't know. And
she didn't really know either.
No, she didn't.
You know?
She didn't know. But that's the thing, right? Is I don't know in the Robinson household means I don't want to think. And so we help her process it. And it got to the point where we identified exactly what the issue was, like spot on. And one of the coolest things was being able to give her a hug afterwards and be like,
just holds on.
She did. And I said, really, Brooklyn, when it boils down to it, I miss you. And she said, I miss you too, Dad. Because there was a time there for like 4 days in a row, I didn't even see her.
Yeah.
Didn't even see her. Yeah. And it was like, I could be mad because she's missed school and she's missed obligations and she's been gone and her room is a wreck. But you know what? None of that stuff matters at all. The room, who cares if it's dirty right now? Right? Yeah. We found out why it's dirty.
But it's good to find out why. That when you see issues like that, when that's not the norm, there's a lot of teenagers, that's the norm with them. But if it's something that's outside of the norm, that should be a red flag that there's something else going on. Yeah, absolutely. You had it with one of the boys about school and grades, and we're figuring some stuff out there. But listeners, the relationships before rules, principle and concept comes from that. It's you've got to have a relationship with your family system before you can ever establish and hold the rule. If you don't, good luck holding it. Yeah. Does that make sense? I mean, really. Well, and it's doing it with a little more compassion rather than, the iron fist. Do we still have rules with her after our conversation? Absolutely. Absolutely. Is she still got standards and curfews that she needs to follow? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But, when it can end with a hug and an understanding and a, hey, I think this is the problem. Okay, well, let's do this, and this to fix it. And how can we help you? Then that's where the relationship is. So what I've noticed in family systems is that takes an abundant amount of time, a lot of time. And it doesn't always. Sometimes takes even more time, even just to notice the signs. Yeah. And being aware when there's so much in life going on. And it gets really well, here's the deal. We could have approached that situation, like, what's going on? I don't know. I don't know means you don't want to think and just kept going down that path. You tell me what's going on. They don't know. Just start coming home on time and quit doing this. They legitimately don't know. Yeah. And so when that conversation ends inevitably because you're not going anywhere, then you're both pissed. Yeah. And then there's one notch in the belt of failure, and the next one, and the next one. She's not going to try to investigate and try to figure out what it is that's wrong. She's going to be pissed and blaming us for being mean, ornery, Yeah, horrible. We had her come home on time, and it was funny because she's like, I'm like, well, so why did you come home tonight on time, but you can't any other night? Yeah. Well, because you guys are pissed. You were yelling at me. I told my friends you were mad. And I'm like, we are probably the easiest parents in the world. Do we look pissed right now? Well, no, but that's how she perceived it, right? Yeah. So you're right. If it would have ended that way, she would have reaffirmed the fact that we're mean parents. Yeah. And so it's crazy that way. But what I've noticed is that repetition of conflict, non-resolution and problems like that, they establish these big walls. And then it's just like, I don't like my kid. I hate him. I want him out. I don't want to even be with him. He just makes me this conversation, even as frustrated as we were, we still had to point out things that she was doing good. Absolutely. And, and that's it, is like some of these other things, some of the school in her room and some of these other things are failing, but she is rocking it as an employee.
She's doing a
She's
great
stepping up
job.
as a manager at her job, and she's taking on these amazing leadership and principles, and she's learning like this integrity that she's telling us about. And so we had to point out some of those things too, to also get some movement with her.
Absolutely. And so that's the thing, right? And it took an abundant amount of time. It really did. And so you hear us often talk about, like parenting out of inconvenience. There was a movie we wanted to watch. There was things we wanted to do, but
Her sister wanted to go with her somewhere
on a drive. Absolutely. And so it's inconvenient. It's inconvenient to be sober. It's inconvenient to be a student. But if you do it out of your inconvenience, guess what happens? It works.
And it starts getting easier.
It does.
A little bit of what our lesson was last night at Addict Athlete on self-discipline. Once you get something under, it becomes a habit. Then you move on to the next one. It becomes easier. It's not always so inconvenient,
Absolutely. And so, this whole kit and caboodle that I'm talking about here, is that people change. Don't typecast yourself into an addict. Don't typecast yourself into an athlete. Don't typecast yourself into the mean dad or the mean mom. Well, I just love you, so I'm holding you down. This is me. You guys, be fluid with this, right? Be able to learn and to grow and to share. You don't need to, and here's the funny thing, you don't need to be friends with your children. In fact, I would counsel very much against that. Be their parent. Everyone wants to be friends with their kids because it's good vibes,
But friends don't.
No.
To be a good parent, you don't also need to be the iron fist, like dictator.
No.
So,
relationships before rules. It's a funny thing. It's a hard concept. I love talking to people about this because it freaks them out. They're like, dude, what?
I'm getting better.
You do good. You're great at it. The thing is, though, is again, don't typecast yourself. Expand.
That's the point of this life, right? Is that we're progressing and we're getting better. And if you're ever answer a question with, well, that's just the way I am, well, you got a problem. And I hear that a lot. I've always been that way. That's my personality. That's the way I am.
Yeah.
If you say that, really better stop and evaluate something, because we should always be getting better. We should always be changing and growing and developing. And yeah, we may have tendencies towards something or a certain behavior, but if it's a negative thing that's bringing something bad into your life, you may want to look at it.
And wouldn't it be interesting if that's the case where someone's like, well, that's just the way I am, but I want everybody else around me to change? See, that makes zero sense.
It happens all the time.
I know, it makes no sense.
All the time. Yeah.
It is what it is. So, holy crap. We could go on a tangent on that one, but you're right. You do. And, most common language or sentence in any scripture, it came to pass. It never just comes to stay. So if you're sitting idle, you better get moving, because life's going around you and you'll miss it. You will absolutely miss it. It's not, it's not always that easy, but it's very much worth it. I don't know.
Question
here. Yeah.
I recently just found out I am pregnant. As soon as I found out, I'm trying to stop using meth. But my cravings are horrendous and I don't think I can do it. I want to do it for my baby, but I can't handle this. Please help. Gotcha.
So we're talking about we're talking about cravings and the triggers and the things associated with it.
And it's like, yeah, she's pregnant. So it's not that she had been trying to quit on her own.
Yeah.
She was using and found out she's pregnant. And so now she's got, a pretty big motivator here to try to stay clean.
Absolutely.
And sometimes you do need that external motivator of a child or, a job. And a lot of people say that's not good. You need to have the internal motivation, but sometimes most of the time it starts externally. Even with our children, a lot of kids don't have a lot of internal motivation. That's something as a parent we try to teach with our kids, is how to feel good about something they've done, so they start gaining internal motivation. But a lot of it comes from a reward.
Yes.
At the end, they get to play a game, or they get to a gold star in class, and then they get a reward at the end of the week, or they get their they get some income, for mom and dad for doing their chores. Those are all external motivations. And so that's the point, is that you start with that, but then it has to become internal. So,
Absolutely. Well, you remember, it's the dopamine dump. That's what causes, that's what causes, the desire to want to keep using. So there's other things that we have to either, erase the methamphetamine, you have to replace it with something of greater value, which is going to be something that's going to release dopamine. The problem is it's not going to be as intense. But
and this is where a lot of people struggle early in recovery, is because you think, okay, well, yeah, I need to erase and replace, and I want to do these other things, but nothing is as good as the high. Like that, the high of meth or heroin, whatever it is such a strong chemical release that normal things in life aren't as intense as that. That's why people choose it. So learning how to recalibrate your brain to know and understand that your brain will come down and start recognizing, okay, that's still, like hugging and holding a little baby. That's a lot of dopamine dump.
Yes, it is.
But it's going to have to recalibrate to lower that. I can't even think of the term.
Well, yeah, I mean,
you think is
you need to balance it back.
Yeah, it's got to readjust.
So number one, great question. Number one, manage your stress, because stress is one of the most intense issues that faces people in recovery, because that's the number one reason for relapse. So stress is a risk factor to everyone in recovery, specifically you, because meth in and of itself is kind of chemically, structured for you to want more. That's what it does. And so managing your stress, it's going to involve tools and techniques that you might have never really thought of, but like grounding, breathing exercises, meditation, yoga, these kind of things where you can take your mind off it by channeling your stress elsewhere. Cortisol in your body will not only, kick in the desire to want to use, but it'll hurt you and the baby. Cortisol is a bugger. So manage your stress first. The second one, this is going to be being very in tune with your emotions. Do not suppress your emotions. If you're pissed, be pissed. Let people know you're pissed. If you're sad, let people know you're sad. Again, we're using things to cover stuff that sucks and that hurts. And if we're not expressing this stuff and saying, guys, I need someone to come over and drive me to get a drink or to get a candy bar or something. I need something from someone, because I'm feeling super
Utilize
low.
Your team. It's going to, a lot of distraction. Use things to distract yourself. If that means you go for a bike, you go exercise, like you said, grounding techniques, you listen to music, something that's going to help you. I suggest listening to the Addict podcast. It's a great way to distract yourself, but also some education. We have some great guests with wonderful inspiration and motivation of oh yeah, that's where I want to be. So you can kind of help change the way you're looking at it and where you want to be, instead of the here and now and I want to use right now. Start using some of those.
Absolutely.
Things.
Draw a line in the sand and let that be your starting line, because there are times when things are going to get overwhelming. And in the moment, it's going to be super hard. So rather than give into the cravings, like Marissa says, distract yourself, put some time and some distance in between you and the moment you felt like you wanted to use.
Yeah.
And you'd be amazed at how well that works. And some of those things literally are going for a walk, right? It's about getting some exercise, going outside. It's about
what's going to help give you some of that adrenaline and dopamine, like you say, by doing some exercise, doing something else.
Yep.
I think this is also a perfect time to get out there, find a counselor, maybe find
the source of why.
An inpatient, an outpatient, a therapist that's going to help you work through some of this, is going to help decrease some of the cravings if you're trying to really address why it is you're using, rather than just, I don't want to use because I want to keep my baby healthy.
Absolutely. You don't have to recover alone. You don't have to do this by yourself. This is where we come in. If you've asked this question, you're on the team, obviously. So I would recommend jumping on our Patreon, getting on the $2 a month, and start working the extracurricular recovery program. This is a step-by-step guide that's going to help you overcome this stuff.
Coming out on that Patreon platform. Weekly, there's different episodes with homework and assignments to help you work through. And you can get it for $2 a month up to $100 a month.
Now,
You can afford it.
excuse me, the physical cravings will stop after 30 days, but the mental cravings will take years.
Yeah.
So don't do this alone. This is, you are probably at the most amazing, I guess, part of your journey right now, because this is where you're making a decision.
Yeah.
You're no longer deciding, because now you have something to make that decision for, right?
Yeah.
And so we're here to help, but let's get you moving. That's a great question. It
Yeah.
really is.
And I think when you say, it can take years, sometimes you look at it and think that's so long and that's so overwhelming. But also we're in this as hopefully that's what point of recovery is. It's for the long game.
Yeah.
This is a marathon, not a sprint.
Mhm.
And sometimes helping you see that this is far out and we just want to make small incremental improvements every day because we're going the long distance. We need to pace ourselves. This isn't something we want to just fix tomorrow.
Mhm.
So look at the long distance, but also set small and incremental goals
Yeah.
that you can work towards.
Well, I truly think you'll feel it. You'll feel when you're done recovering and you're no longer in recovery.
Yeah.
And you switch to healing. You'll feel it. You'll know when it hits you. You're like, man, I can stretch a little bit different. I can move these emotional muscles I hadn't in a long time.
Yeah.
I don't think it's good for us to be in the mentality of I'm in long-term recovery. Baloney.
Yeah.
You can heal from this. And it takes time. It takes, it takes mental, physical, spiritual therapy, right? To get through it all. This is a great question. Do not hide yourself. We want to help you. This is what it's for. Jump on patreon.com/addictathlete, $2 a month. And I think you can pay it all at once. That's like what, $20 or something? Do they do? I don't even know.
16.
It's like
You get-
$16.
You get a discount if you pay for
Yeah.
upfront,
That's all of the content you can have.
and it gets you for a year.
It gets you for a whole year. And there's going to be upwards of 60 plus episodes of the extracurricular playbook right there for you.
Yeah.
So jump on there and see. Thank you so much for asking that question. Listeners, you've been well fed. Thank you all for participating in today's episode. This will be a podcast we'll post so you can download, share, and subscribe and get it out to those who truly need it. We're seeing a bump in our numbers. So if you're new here, welcome. We'd like to have you check out our website, addict2athlete.org. Tons of resources, backlog podcasts, that team store Marissa was talking about, right? It's in there. Look at where am I at? There we go.
We just added some other long sleeve shirts. I'm
Mhm.
going to get in there today and get a raincoat added, and we've got things coming in.
And this is and Marissa will be taking away and eliminating the 10-year anniversary shirt. So this is your last chance. Jump on and grab
If you want
it.
to get something before Christmas,
Order now.
Anything you're ordering for Christmas presents, whatever, it's taking a lot longer. Get it ordered now. If you want to give this as a gift to somebody or for yourself, get on that.
Get on and do
Store
that.
order.
Thank you, Radio Ronin and the Radio Ronin Network, for all you do for Team Addict Athlete. We love being a part of the Ronin family, and athletes and listeners, viewers, and all you in between. Until next time, go turn that mess into a